Welcome back to the Sports Legends, where you're going to get the most in-depth sports breakdowns on YouTube. I'm your host, Bull. Today, we're going to be playing an NFL franchise that's picking an edge rusher in the first round, and we're going to be comparing Shemar Stewart and James Pearce with a ton of information. At the end, we're going to decide who would we rather pick in the first round. As always, y'all, if you enjoy our content, please do make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. All right, y'all, we're going to start this thing off by looking at Robert Donahue's most recent mock draft. I think he dropped this 2 or 3 days ago. For those y'all that don't know, Robert Donahue is the most accurate mock drafter, and he's held that title for like the past several years now. Either way, this is going to be coming from sharpfootballanalysis.com if y'all want to look at this stuff more in depth, because we're not going to go through his whole list today. But specifically looking at those edge rushers, we can see that Abdul Carter is projected to be the first one picked. A lot of folks are thinking the exact same thing. Abdul Carter is a stud. He's a really good player. We might do a different video later on, just kind of like breaking him down versus somebody else, maybe the winner of this video. But either way, Robert Donahue does have him projected to go number 1 overall to the Tennessee Titans. And after that, we do have Jalen Walker going at number 8 to the Panthers. And at number 9, we have Shemar Stewart, who we're going to be talking about today, going to the Saints. And let's keep on going down. Let's look for some more edge rushers. Next at number 15, he has my Atlanta Falcons taking Mykel Williams. I don't know if that's going to happen, but that's what he is thinking will happen. And then we have Mike Green from Marshall going to the Cardinals. And Mike Green is really good. He's another one that I would love to kind of break down what he can bring to the table as an edge rusher. And then after that, the next player that we have all the way at the end, at number 32, going to the Philadelphia Eagles, is going to be James Pearce Jr. So we're seeing that James Pearce is projected to go number 32. And just to remind everybody, in case you forgot, in that short period of time, Shemar Stewart is projected to be going number 9. So let's take a look at how much of a money difference there is, if Shemar Stewart ends up going at 9, and then if James Pearce ends up going at number 32. So this is the 2025 NFL rookie pay scale. I'm looking at the total value. If you started off at the number 1 overall pick, it's worth $43 million over the course of a rookie contract. Now, things will decrease in increments as you go further down with the picks. The biggest decreases are going to be from 5 to 6. That's about a $5 million decrease. And then from 7 to 8, it's about a $4 million decrease. So we already know that Robert Donahue did project that Abdul Carter would be that number 1 overall pick. He's going to have a beautiful day for sure if that is the case. I think he's going to be top 5 either way. So that's about how that looks. But today we're going to be looking at Shemar Stewart, who Robert Donahue projected to go at number 9 to the Saints. That pick is worth about $24.6 million over the course of a rookie contract. Now let's compare that to where James Pearce will be picked at, which is number 32. That's worth about $13.3 million. So we're talking about a difference of $11 million. Another very notable decrease is going to be from the first round to the second round. So look at pick number 32. Again, it's worth $13.3 million. And then pick number 33, which will be at the top of the second round, that's going to be worth about $10.8 million. So close to, to almost $3 million of a difference. So all these guys want to go in the first round, higher in the first round, because you're going to get paid more. But I wanted to make sure that I point that out. But let's just say, for argument's sake, that the franchise that we're going to be scouting for is the Saints, and we're picking at number 9. Do we think that Shemar Stewart is worth $11 million more than James Pearce? That's what we're going to be breaking down today. Next, let's take a look at Shemar Stewart versus James Pearce according to Pro Football Focus. Some of the stuff with PFF, y'all, I take with a grain of salt, and I'll tell you what that is as we get to it. But the things that I really do like to look at are the max speed and the average max speed. So we'll start off right there. For James Pearce, his average max speed was 19.5 miles per hour. And for Shemar Stewart, his average max speed was 19 miles per hour. That is very impressive for either one of those players and for both of those players. Now, the overall max speed for James Pearce is 23 miles per hour. The overall max speed for Shemar Stewart is 19.6. Again, very impressive for both of the players, but 23 miles per hour is like wide receiver speed. Actually, the fastest wide receiver in this year's draft was clocked at 23.1 miles per hour, according to Pro Football Focus. So that's how fast James Pearce can actually get up to. But let's keep this thing moving. Let's talk about some more things here. Now, I'm going to stop it right here on the grades. This is where I start to take things with a grain of salt, but we will talk about it because I know some of y'all like to look at these grades. So number 1 with James Pearce, his grade on defense was a 91.4. Shemar Stewart graded out at a 67.7. As far as the pass rush grade, James Pearce has had a 92.6 and Shemar Stewart has had a 70.1. So, again, according to Pro Football Focus's grades, they are saying that James Pearce is the better player in those categories. Now, let's talk about the sacks, because Pro Football Focus does this thing where they'll count the sacks even if there was a penalty on the play and the play didn't count. ESPN doesn't do that. So we're going to look at the stats again, and you're going to see what ESPN's grades are. So if there's a difference, that's the reason for the difference. Anyway, James Pearce had 23 sacks according to PFF. Shemar Stewart had 7. You can see the difference in the hits and the difference in the hurries. And let's scroll over. Let's see what else we got. Oh, this is a big one for me. Win percent. So this is the percentage of time that these players beat their blocks, that they won versus their blocks. Obviously, this is a huge deal for any pass rusher. So James Pearce graded out winning 22% of the time, and Shemar Stewart graded out at 11.3% of the time he was beating his blocks. So James Pearce is winning or beating his blocks twice as much as Shemar Stewart. You can also look at the run defense grades. Right here, James Pearce graded out at a 76.8, and Shemar Stewart graded out at a 63.2. Last thing that we're going to look at is the coverage grades, and we see that James Pearce graded out at an 84.7, and Shemar Stewart graded out at a 70.9. But if you look at the coverage snaps, James Pearce had 62, and Shemar Stewart had 0. So this is why I say I take the grading scale with PFF with a grain of salt. There's no reason that you should have a 70.9 grade on coverage if you've never even dropped into coverage. But this is another part of, I think, James Pearce's game that shows his versatility, something that we just haven't seen from Shemar Stewart. Not to say that he can't do it, but I have not seen that on film. Now let's take a look at their stats according to ESPN, which is what most people go by. If you're watching TV, listening to analysts anywhere, TV, radio, whatever, they're going to be going more so based off of these stats. So Shemar Stewart, his playing weight was about 6'6", 290 pounds. I got his size, also got James Pearce's size from their school's websites. I think that Shemar Stewart might have played closer to about 300 pounds. James Pearce came in at 6'5", 243 pounds. I think that he probably played closer to about 250. As far as the snap totals and differences, we're seeing that for Shemar Stewart, 553 snaps. Now, this is just like pass rush snaps. And looking at James Pearce, 464 snaps. So about 100 snap difference. That's going to be consistent, whether it's run stopping or whether it's pass rush, whether it's just total. It's going to be about 100 more snaps for Shemar Stewart compared to James Pearce. But let's look at their actual numbers, right? 64 tackles, 14 for loss, 1 forced fumble for Shemar Stewart. That is very impressive over the course of 3 seasons. And then you have 70 tackles, 16 for loss, 3 forced fumbles, 1 interception, which was actually a pick 6 for James Pearce. And I think that was in the Citrus Bowl versus Iowa. And then let's take a look at their sack numbers. Obviously, very important, 4.5 for Shemar Stewart, 19 for James Pearce. The pressure rate in their last season in college, 2024, 13.5% for Shemar Stewart and 23.2 for James Pearce. Now, according to Pro Football Focus, that is the highest pressure rate of all FBS players. So very impressive right there. But we're not done. I want to take another look, okay? I want to look at these guys at the NFL Combine. Let's take a look at their measurables. Let's take a look at their numbers, and let's see where that compares to other college football players. Now let's take a look at how these players' combine numbers compare to other players at the NFL Combine, and this is going to be amongst all players. And we'll start off with the height. Both players are 6'5", but James Pearce is a little bit over 6'5", so he's in the 92nd percentile, and Shemar Stewart is in the 91st percentile. The reason that James Pearce's side is green is because he's winning in that category. Next is for the weight. We already talked about Stewart being about 20 pounds heavier than James Pearce. He's in the 74th percentile, and James Pearce is in the 63rd percentile. Arm length, really big difference right here, man. Stewart has very long arms, over 34 inches, 93rd percentile. You want that with your edge rushers for sure. James Pearce at almost 33 inches, 32 3/4. That's the 69th percentile. Next is hand size. We see that James Pearce has the bigger hands, 85th percentile, and then Shemar Stewart is in the 66th percentile. 40-yard dash, Stewart's in the 67th percentile. James Pearce is in the 87th. We're seeing some pretty sizable differences that goes in favor on both sides, right? Actually, if you look, if you add this stuff up, there's 4 categories that Stewart's winning in. There's 4 that James Pearce is winning in, and we will continue to go through this. So 10-yard split, 158, 75th percentile for Shemar Stewart, and 156, 84th percentile for James Pearce. Now, for me, that's not a huge difference. We're talking about 200ths of a second. So it might even be more impressive that Shemar Stewart is like 20 pounds heavier than James Pearce, but their 10-yard split is like almost the exact same. And that 10-yard split is really going to be a lot more important than the overall 40 time, I think, for most of these edge rushers. But if you're talking about an edge rusher that you want to be able to drop out in coverage and do some different things, have more versatility, then you would look more towards that 40-yard dash, and that's something that James Pearce is definitely winning in. All right, so last 2 is going to be vertical jump. Like we said, just incredible what Shemar Stewart did 40 inches, 97th percentile for James Pearce, only 31 inches, 34th percentile. That's not that good, but that's something else that it's probably not a huge deal for these guys as edge rushers. Outside of the simple fact that looking at that, you can kind of gauge how explosive players are. That's kind of like the same thing with that 10-yard split. So things could maybe balance out there, or, I don't know. That's something that individual teams and stuff, like they'll kind of like weigh all this stuff differently. But we will continue to go through this. So the last one's going to be broad jump. Dude, 98th percentile for Shemar Stewart at 10 feet 11 inches. That is insane for a guy that's 6'5", 270 pounds to be able to jump and explode like that. That is very impressive. So next for James Pearce, his broad jump was 10.3. That's 82nd percentile. So that was still really good for James Pearce. But what Shemar Stewart did was just like elite, elite, elite. All right, y'all. Now it's time for the film session. We're going to take a look at both players' run defense, starting off with Shemar Stewart. So in the first play, he's lined up in a 5 technique, and that tackle is going to try to block him to the outside, but he's going to crash back to the inside. He's going to that B gap. Keep in mind, he's 6'5", 290 plus pounds on this film, and he is extremely explosive. Very, very twitchy. Does a great job here. Just using his speed, using his strength, using his power to be able to get in the backfield, make a very sound flush tackle. Next play, he's lined up in about a 4 technique. It's going to be a little bit of a combo block. I think this is like a stretch play, outside zone play. Either way, he's going to do a great job going through this B gap, maintaining the gap as it kind of moves. And, he's able to disengage and make that play flat down the line of scrimmage. So extremely versatile athlete. Right here, we have him lined up in about a 5 technique. He's going to go unblocked. He's the read man, and that quarterback is reading to see what he does. And, the quarterback will decide, do I want to keep this myself or should I hand it off to this running back? And on this play, man, listen, you cannot leave this guy unblocked because he blows it up before the quarterback can even, decide on what he wants to do. That's a fumble, and I do believe that Texas A&M might have got that ball back. Right here, he's lined up in about a 7 technique. They're going to try to use a tight end to block him on this run play, and that's tough, right? And the crazy thing for me is that tight ends, we all know, are fast. Like, they're twitchier guys. But Shemar Stewart beats this tight end to this B gap, and I just think that speaks volumes about the type of a player that he is, not just with his, sheer speed and things like that, but also in understanding what the offense is trying to do, where the play is going. It's something to be said, obviously, for sure, about being a playmaker. On this play, line up in about a 5 technique, one-on-one block versus this tackle. He's going back to that B gap, and he does a good job here of just kind of holding that point of contact. And, he keeps his, inside leverage there so that he can make that tackle. So he's a guy that doesn't get moved very easily. He also uses speed very well. I think run support might be his specialty. In this one, he's lined up in about a 7 technique, and he's going to, pretty much be that read man again in this read option. So it's going to be the quarterback and the running back that we have highlighted in yellow. And he does a really good job here of kind of closing down the edge of that line of scrimmage, and he doesn't let the quarterback keep it, but he can also make a play on the running back again in the backfield. Here, he's lined up in about a 4-eye. I love him in that 4-eye. I think that that's probably the best place for you to play a Shemar Stewart. Now, this is going to be a block where this guard is going to try to reach him on this outside zone, right? And again, that speed is something serious. He's also able to get skinny, plays with a really high motor, follows through, makes the tackle in the backfield. Next, we have James Pearce Jr. Let's see what he does, as far as his run defense. So in the first one, lined up in about a 6 technique. Now, something crazy that Tennessee did with James Pearce is they would start him off on the outside and bring him back to the inside. So here, he's going to come to the A gap. And I don't know if this is something that's actually in Tennessee's scheme or if he just knew where the play was going. But obviously, he goes unblocked because, no one is expecting, hey, this end over here is going to be coming back to the A gap. So you're not too much worried about that. But that's what his speed and versatility can do for you. We're seeing that off of the first play. Next one, he's lined up in a 9 technique, and he's going to be, that read guy. Same thing that we just saw with Stewart. So let's see what he does on this one. Gets up the field, does a good job of making sure, hey, quarterback can't hand this off. But, if the quarterback keeps it, I can still make that play. And that's on a quarterback that can most definitely move. So that was extremely impressive. Next play, we have him in a goal line situation, literally on the 1-yard line, lined up in about a 6 technique. That's not a tight end that's blocking him. No, that is a tackle that they're using to get some extra beef up on the line of scrimmage. So James Pearce's job right here is to set this edge, and nothing's going to get through, his gap right here, his area right here. But watch how effortlessly he's able to disengage with this tackle. It's like he's not even there. But not only that, he gets in and he's able to cause a fumble, recover the fumble on a quarterback sneak on the 1-yard line versus a hated rival. That's the type of stuff that James Pearce can do, big time playmaker. So on this one, he's lined up in a 7 technique, and he's going to do the same thing that we saw earlier. He's coming to that A gap. Now, this tight end is supposed to be blocking him, but you cannot block a guy that's going to go over, 2 or 3 gaps this quickly, and he's able to make a very good tackle inside of that gap. Now, on this one, he's lined up in about a 6 technique, and he's going to go right through that C gap. And this is going to be another one of those read option plays, okay? But on this one, he's actually going to be getting blocked. This is going to be our first time seeing a guy on any sort of an option play as that end man that is going to get blocked. So he does a good job of not only beating this block, right, holding up at the point of contact, but also making sure that he can disengage whenever he wants to and make this tackle on the quarterback. Now, this next one, he's lined up in another 9 technique. That could be maybe like a 6 technique. It just really all, it's kind of hard to tell from some of these angles. But either way, another option play, right? So he's going to go unblocked with this one. He's able to, look, quarterback doesn't want to hold on to it, but he is still able to make this tackle. So we're going to see it one more time. So quarterback can't keep it, but he's able to make the tackle from the backside with his speed. This play, we have him lined up in about a 6 technique. It's going to be another one of those option plays where you still have to block James Pearce, right? So he's getting blocked even on these option plays, and he does a phenomenal job. Look at that. I mean, that's a tight end trying to block him. Tight ends cannot block this man, and he plays with a really high motor. How quickly he was able to disengage right there, that I love to see things like that. So here he's lined up in about a 9. Again, this could maybe be a 6, but I would call this about a 9 just because that, tight end, he's almost lined up as, I would say, like an H-back sort of a deal. Either way, right? So he's lined up here, but he's going to crash back in to that A gap, okay? And this tackle is going to try to make this block on him, but you just can't do it. He sets him up to the outside, comes back to the inside, and he makes him look really, really foolish. So now let's take a look at both players' pass rush. We're going to be starting off, obviously, with Shemar Stewart. So on the first one, what we have right here is he's lined up in a 5 technique, and he's going to go straight through that B gap. A lot of what he does is inside of that B gap, and he's got a tackle that's going to try to block him. But he's a guy that, man, if you don't have that inside leverage on him, if he's going to the inside, you're not going to block him. He's just too quick. He's just too shifty, and he's very, very powerful also at the point of contact. Next play, we have him lined up in a 5 technique, but he's going to go to the outside here versus this tackle. So he can beat you to the inside. He can beat you to the outside. Really good job here of pressing that pocket, and he doesn't actually win to the outside, but he does a good job of kind of closing that pocket down, and like we said, man, he can disengage pretty much at will. So on this play, what we're going to have is an overloaded blitz, and because there's an overloaded blitz with this linebacker or safety, whatever, the one that's highlighted in yellow coming off of the edge, the tackle right there is going to try to pick up that edge guy, and that's going to leave Shemar Stewart unblocked. And what do we say, man? You cannot leave this guy unblocked. Straight pass to the quarterback, that could have gotten really ugly. As a matter of fact, I'm sure that Riley Leonard felt like that one was really ugly, but that could have been a pick or, a strip sack, anything. So, yes, you have got to dedicate somebody to this man. On this one, it's going to be a double team. He's going through this B gap, and let's see what he does. He's actually lined up, I believe, in a 4-eye right there. But, I mean, just high motor. He's got really good speed. That is the same quarterback that we just saw with James Pearce, Taylor Green for Arkansas. Very fast guy. He's going to be just as fast as probably any quarterback in the NFL, but we're seeing that he can close out on quarterbacks of that ilk. So on this next one, he's lined up in about a 6 technique. He's going to come to the outside one-on-one versus this tackle. Kind of a similar play that we saw before, but their running back's going out of the backfield. So you need to have someone to chip him if he's just going to be one-on-one with someone. Yeah, I don't think that he's a guy that you want to leave isolated one-on-one versus most tackles. Right here, another double team. This is more of what you want to try to do. And this works a little bit better, right? Slows him up some, but that high motor, he, keeps on pressing that pocket, gets to the quarterback. He's able to impact that pass. That's what pass rushers are supposed to do. Right here, lined up in a 9. I think this is our first time seeing him lined up in a wide 9, but he's going to come off of this edge one-on-one versus that tackle. Actually, it looked like he might have been blitzing, and he beats this tackle out of his stance. This is ridiculous speed, okay, especially for a guy that on this film, 290 plus pounds. Very twitchy, very explosive. Now let's take a look at how James Pearce does compare to Shemar Stewart. So we're going to see him right here in this wide 9 coming off the edge. Tackle one-on-one game. You don't want to do that. He's able to beat him really quickly. His first step is amongst the best. It's amongst the best maybe that we've seen. His first step is crazy. Y'all will see that as we go through this. So another wide 9 one-on-one with this tackle coming off the edge. And he's able to kind of engage and then just kind of dip and get right around that tackle. He closes well, bends very well. Another wide nine one-on-one with this tackle. Boom, comes back to the inside. So sets him up to the outside, comes back to the inside, showing, some sort of wiggle to his game. I think pass rushers need to have some type of wiggle. You need some counter moves, especially once you get to the league. So right here, he's lined up in about a 6, and we've got a tight end trying to block him. There's a little bit of, misdirection with this play coming from Alabama. And really, James Pearce's main job is just to maintain outside leverage, which he does a very good job of. And he sees that jet sweep coming, and he does a good job of taking away that. But then also putting his foot in the dirt versus Jalen Milroe, the most athletic quarterback in this year's draft. So right here we have James Pearce lined up in a 5 technique. He's going to go to the inside, versus this tackle one-on-one. You don't want to do it. No one even wants to really pick him up. Maybe that was on the guard. I don't know, but he's so quick. He gets through the gap so fast that you better know who's supposed to be getting him before the play starts, or you're going to miss him. He's going to wreak havoc. So on this play, we have a stunt coming from Tennessee. The guy that's highlighted in yellow is going to turn into the edge guy. And we are seeing that James Pearce starts off in a 9. So he's going to come back to the inside, and it looks like he's aiming for that A gap. A gap, maybe B gap. Does a good job here just of maintaining his area. But as soon as the quarterback starts to vacate, he's able to close on him very quickly. That's another very fast quarterback. So this one right here, another 9 technique, one-on-one versus this tackle. He's going to go off the edge, beats him out of his stance, right? So we saw the same thing with Stewart. We're seeing it with James Pearce. Anytime that you can beat the guys out of their stances, that's incredible because they know what the snap count is. So he's a guy, like I said, his first step is just tremendous. On this play, again, this is a 6 technique. He's going to be coming to the outside, one-on-one, comes back to the inside, sets him up to the outside, comes back to the inside, looks down the field to see, did the quarterback throw the ball yet? No. Okay, I'm still holding on to you. And if you haven't, then, at that point, I'm going to go ahead and take you down. So that is going to be it for our film session. So obviously those are 2 very good players, and whatever team ends up picking, either one of them is going to be very happy with their pick. And if I'm the GM, if I'm the one that's going to be picking between these 2 players, there's a couple of things that I'm going to look at. Number one of the biggest things that people always talk about is, do you want the player that's proven that they can do it on the field, or do you want the guy with the higher upside? So in this situation, the higher upside might actually be going to Shemar Stewart, just because if you look at his testing numbers, I mean, it was crazy. Like, a lot of his testing numbers were significantly better than James Pearce. He only ran about a 1/10 of a second slower than James Pearce, but 20 pounds heavier. So that looks good. I think that he's a guy that could do a lot of crazy things. My biggest question would be, why didn't I see that on the field? Only 4 sacks in 3 seasons playing at Texas A&M. That does not say a whole lot to me, especially considering that James Pearce played less snaps within those 3 seasons, and he was a hell of a lot more productive. Almost had like 5 times the amount of sacks as Stewart did. And then also, if you look at their pressure rate, James Pearce had the highest pressure rate of any player in 2024, and it was twice of what Stewart's was. So little things like that would concern me and would probably scare me away from drafting a Shemar Stewart. You also have to look at this, right? So we talked about their combine sizes compared to their playing sizes. Well, Shemar Stewart dropped about 20 pounds to go to the NFL Combine. His actual playing weight is going to be 290-plus pounds. And James Pearce actually gained a couple of pounds if you're going based off of what those sites said. Now, like I told you, I feel like James Pearce actually probably was playing at about 250 pounds. So he probably lost about 5 pounds to get out there and run his 40. Albeit he did also run that with the hoodie on. So I just think that if you're looking at everything, and that 4.47, obviously, that is no slouch. That's the fastest edge time of any player up to this point in the 2025 NFL draft. So I think that also looks good. And I would also say that if you look at the on-the-field stuff, just kind of how these players look out in space, James Pearce might have been the most impressive player out of any of the players that we looked at on defense, just pound for pound, right? Just talking about being able to move around with little to no wasted movement. That he was that dude. So he looked great right there. I think that he is more of an edge rusher, which is what we're talking about, right? We're talking about edge rushers. But if you talk about Shemar Stewart playing at a 3 technique at 6'5", 295 pounds, still very twitchy, very strong. He can kind of slide out to the end for you sometimes if you need him to. I think that he would be the best 3 technique in this entire draft, which would still put him high up in the first round. So I think that it just really all depends on what a team views him as, because I think that he's a lot more of a tweener than any of the other analysts and experts have talked about. I don't see him as a true edge rusher. We didn't see him dropping the pass coverage. We've seen James Pearce do that. We didn't watch it today, but we know that that's something that he did a lot of at Tennessee. So edge rushers need to be able to play out in space. That's something that James Pearce can do. Not quite sure if Stewart can do it. You'd be taking a hell of a chance, especially picking at number 9 on Stewart if you're looking for an edge rusher. I just don't know that he's the number 3 edge rusher in this year's draft. I don't. Again, let him play at tackle. I think he will be perfect as a 3-4 end, not a stand-up end, but a hand in the dirt end. Man, he would wreak a lot of havoc right there, especially because, he's going to get a lot of double teams that he can split and use his speed and things like that. You have to double team, and I think that opens things up for a team more. So they might both be equally as valuable, but if you're talking about who would you pick for an edge rusher, I don't think that there's really any question. It absolutely has got to be James Pearce. But that's my thoughts. Please share yours with me down in the comment section. And as always, please do make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. We'll see y'all on the next one. Thanks. Peace.